Hello everyone, this is Justin Pavoni from Creatrix Marketing. This is a video for a blog entitled 10 Excel Tricks Every Marketer Should Know. I'm going to use as an example a company that we work for that is in the debt collection business. They are interested in data from the CFPB, which is where you report a complaint against a collections agency. So I'm going to view the data from the CFPB in an attempt to get some original statistics. Here you see all the data. I want to filter that data by date. Let's say that we're interested in everything that has happened in 2015, so I'll say date received is after the 31st of December. Then I would like to export that data as an Excel spreadsheet. I'll save it to my desktop as consumer complaints. There it is. Okay, we'll open up that database now. We'll see that we get a lot of data. A couple thousand complaints already in 2015. What I'd like to do is summarize this data with a pivot table. I'm going to start by selecting the entire table. First turn it into a table, and then we'll say summarize with a pivot table. It's got table 1 selected. That's the data that I just selected, and we're going to export it to a new worksheet. Here's the new sheet down here, and this is our pivot table builder. Essentially what we're going to do is select what we want in the rows, what we want in the columns, and what values we want to see. So let's say that we want to see the issue, and I'd like to have it broken down by state, and I want to see the number of issues that everyone has. This is a pivot table that essentially shows me all the issues that were reported, and then a breakdown by state for the 50 United States. Alright, so I created a couple of pivot tables, and the next Excel trick is going to be how to create a histogram from your data. A histogram, for those of you who aren't familiar, is a chart. You can see one here. And the chart shows the frequency at which a certain event happens. And essentially what I'm showing here is all of the different companies that had complaints against them in 2014. And the number of complaints. And what I wanted to do is say how many companies had 1 complaint, how many had 2, 3, how many had between 4 and 6, 7 and 10, between 11 and 20, etc. So to use that, we do the frequency function. And what I'm going to do is essentially replicate this data, which is the data that this chart is built off of. So let's start by creating our bins. And what we're going to do is enter the top number in the frequency range. So for the first one, I'm just interested in those companies that have 1 complaint, those companies that had 2 complaints, 3 complaints. For the next one, I'm interested in 4 to 6, so I'm going to enter the top number in that range, which is 6. The next one, 7 to 10, so I'll enter 10, and so on. 11 to 20, 21 to 50, 51 to 100. 101 to 500, 501 to 1000, and 1001 to 2500 complaints. The next step is to select the entire array. This is going to be our frequency, so I'll start by just entering frequency up here, and then select the entire array. Then I'll go up to my equation editor. It's going to be equals frequency, open parentheses. Now it asks us for the data, and this is our data here. It's going to start in B5 and it's going to go down. I happen to know that it goes all the way down to B1741. So that selects all our data, and then I'm going to select the bins array, and that's all the numbers that I just entered. And then the last step, normally you would hit enter here. What you want to do is hit Command Shift and enter, and it will calculate the formula for an array. So you'll see now that there were 345 companies that had 1 complaint, 228 that had 2, 160 that had 3, 255 with 4 to 6, etc. What I did on this next column was simply, for my reference and for the chart, is just create the actual x-axis labels, category labels that I wanted for the chart. So I wanted 1 for the first one, 2, 3, 4 to 6. What you do is a quick apostrophe, 4 to 6, and it gives you that data, and so on, 7 to 10, etc. Center it up, go through this process, graph these, and this is what you get. Excel trick number 3 is how to do a regression analysis. I have here a column of data that I made up. In one column you've got a person's age, and in the second column you've got their grade, and I'm trying to show whether or not there is any associated increase in grade as you get older. So I charted out the first one. What we're going to do is select the data, right click, add trend line. You'll get a type. Make sure that you select linear. Forgot to do this. Come back in, display R squared value on chart. 0.02. Let's compare that to the second chart. Alright, you'll see here that it looks like we have a lot more of a linear trend. Select the data, add trend line, type, linear, options, display R squared value. Alright, and in the first one you see 0.02, in the second one you see 0.96. So what is this telling us? R squared is essentially telling us how closely the data that we have matches linear model. This one, the first one, does not match it. You could look at that and think of it like it has a 2% correlation. This one you could say that it has a 96% correlation. In other words, it is very closely related to a linear model. Alright, the next Excel trick is using the VLOOKUP function. I wanted to input a complaint ID and figure out the data about it. So these tables here are actually already programmed for VLOOKUP. What we're going to do is program an additional table. So first of all, how this works is you can input a certain number here, and once you do, it's going to go to your table and give you the associated output. So as we type in our ID number, we figure out the type of debt collection, the type of complaint, and the state that it happened in. Let's say I also want to find the zip code that was associated with it. I'm going to use the VLOOKUP function, equals VLOOKUP. First of all, I wanted to look up the value that is in that cell, so A2. Then it wants to know the table array that I have the data in. So I'll go back to my other tab, select the table. Next, it wants to know the column index number. So this is the first one, second column, third column, fourth column, fifth column, sixth column, seventh column is zip code. That's the one I wanted. And the last, range lookup, I'm going to call false. Essentially what that does is if there's nothing in the cell that you're looking for, it's going to look for essentially the next highest one. So we want an exact match. which means if you want an exact match or NA in the event that there isn't an exact match, you're going to put false. Then I'll click enter, and what do you know, there's the zip code. Now if I take the different complaint ID numbers, you'll notice that the zip code is going to change, and it looks like someone has a 4-digit zip code. Alright, the next Excel trick is how to use a macro. For those of you who are unfamiliar, a macro is simply a program that gets written in Excel's Visual Basic language automatically by recording certain manual actions that you take. So we're going to use a real simple example by formatting the columns that we have here. So I'm in Excel on the Developer tab. First thing, select the cell that you want, then let's click Record. We'll name it Macro 4. We're going to save it in this workbook, and I'm not going to give it a shortcut. What I want to do is format the text differently. So we'll do Arial Black, make it size 18, underline, italic. Go back to my Developer tab. You'll notice that this had turned into a stop. Now I'll stop recording. And I'd like to assign that macro to a button. This is macro 4. We'll call it format text. And now we want to format the other header. Format text. There you go. Simple macro. Alright, the last Excel trick is how to do conditional formatting for your data in Excel. So I've got this same column that we've been looking at with the age and the grade. What I want to do is figure out who's in the top 10 percentile. So I'm going to select the data, and I'll go to Format, Conditional Formatting. It applies for our current selection. I'm going to add a rule. Let's go with our classic formatting rules. And I want to highlight the top 10%. And let's make them highlighted in green. Okay. And you'll notice that our top 10%, this value is now highlighted in green. So that's it. Those are 6 Excel tricks every marketer can use to improve their marketing efforts. The last 4 are on the blog. They are some keyboard shortcuts that are useful when working with Excel. If you have any questions, you can contact me at Justin Pavoni on Twitter, or you can find us at creatrixmarketing.com. Thanks so much. Take care.